Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 503 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. What's going on? I'm really happy to be here with you. I mean, the world always seems to right itself, doesn't it? Isn't that comforting to know that there's something bigger than us looking out for us? I love knowing that. But what I love even more is that we control so much more about our lives than we realize. I mean, we have gotten input over our entire life from our parents, our teachers, our bosses, the news, social media now, so many things that influence how we think about the world and also about ourselves. And it has a lot to do with the actions we take every day. And sometimes we don't even realize it has a lot to do with that. I remember when I wanted to start the podcast and I was talking to the team I was working with at the time. I love them and I still love them to this day. But when I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting this podcast, they said, well, you can't just start a podcast. You have to do all this upfront work. You've got to set up a studio. You have to do this and you've got to do some publishing work and some branding and all this stuff, and you just can't start a podcast. Well, I saw their point, but I also disagreed. And so I started my podcast. And 503 episodes later, here we are. Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are things I thought I wanted from it that haven't happened, and things I had no idea I needed that have happened. And through it all, there has never been one time I wanted to quit. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. When I meet new people, sometimes I hesitate to tell them that I have a podcast because when I do and they find out that I have about 500 episodes or so, there are always two things they ask me, like clockwork. I know the questions are coming. They ask, how many listeners do I have? And do I make money? You see, they want to judge the success of my podcast based on industry standards. And fair enough, I would probably do the same thing. Now, the truth is, I don't really know how many listeners I have. There are a lot of different ways you can listen. Now, I know on Spotify and I can see on Apple, and I know that there are some of you that listen every single time there's an episode. And I don't know who you are, but I know you're there and I know you're going to be there, and I love that. And I also know you wouldn't still be here if you weren't getting benefit from it. And I would never want to let you down on that Monday when you really need it. Or that Friday when maybe that little 10-minute episode gives you a thought that makes that annoying coworker maybe not so annoying. So I'm glad you're here, truly more than you know. I also know I wouldn't still be here if I didn't get benefit from it. So I hope you love listening as much as I love doing it. Now, my point of this episode is to not listen to the peanut gallery. Listen to your own heart. Follow your gut way more than you follow other people, and you'll live a life that's really rewarding. So many times other people will put limitations on you that are their limitations, not yours. Now, they're not probably being malicious. They could be trying to protect you, but in that protection, they're training you away from your own internal guidance. And if you want to live a life untethered, a life that brings you joy and freedom, you cannot allow that. You have to follow your intuition more often than not, and you have to let go of past baggage. I read in a book, The Laws of Life. It's such a good book. I'm still reading it, but there was a study done about jumping fleas. Now, how it started, why they did it, I don't know, because it sounds a little weird to me. But these jumping fleas were put into a jar, and as they would jump, they would hit their head on the lid. So over time, they forget they can jump. And for fear of hitting their heads, they never go beyond the limits of the jar, even when the lid was removed. Through continued failure, you see the fleas have become conditioned to their own confinement. Even when the confinement is no longer there, it's all in their head. So is the same with us. So often we unknowingly confine ourselves to our little glass jar where the lid is our mental prison. Our thoughts a lot of times create that mental prison. The thoughts like, I'm too old, I'll never be able to afford that, or I'll never be happy again, there's no way. Or thoughts of this bad thing happened to me and it has now defined me in everything I do. See, sometimes our mental prison might be a resentment that tears at the fabric of our relationship, or a hurt that never heals because we keep picking at it. maybe an anger that poisons us and with that, everyone around us. Living in this world with other people brings lots of opportunities to feel joy, but also pain. Don't we know it? I mean, we're going to experience positive and negative emotions. Of course, we're human, but suffering, that's a choice. Suffering is a mental prison. Suffering is a lid on the glass jar that you live in. So is resentment. So is anger. So is self-doubt. So is any negative emotion you hang on to. It's a lid that you keep bumping your head on, and you don't have to. That bad thing that happened years ago lives only in your mind. That fight with your sister, it's over. And it lives only in your head. Now, maybe hers too. Or that thing your partner did or said that you like to bring up, you don't have to use it as a weapon. You can let it go. See, that's a mental prison. Anything that makes you second guess being kind or doing something loving or from reaching out to say, I love you, any little or big grudge you hold, any limits you put on yourself based on old habits or old ideas. These are all mental prisons. They're all lids that we keep bumping our heads up against, and we wonder why we so often feel defeated. Every time you bring up past hurts and resentments, every time you hang on to anger, every time you listen to the limitations of other people have for you, I want you to mentally remind yourself that you're bumping into that lid again. And it hurts, and you don't have to do it. If I listened to other people, I would never have started this podcast. And if I worried about what other people thought about its success, I would never keep doing it. My challenge to you this week is to be real with yourself. Be real about your own mental prison. What thoughts are keeping you there? Maybe it's one big one, or maybe a bunch of little ones. We may live in a glass jar, but whether the lid is on or off, that's up to us. Share this with 3 people you love. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.